Well, to travel matters back home now, and the budget airline Norwegian Air has said it will end flights between Ireland and the United States next month, blaming the grounding of the Boeing 737 MAX aircraft. The airline said the routes are no longer commercially viable. 6 routes from Dublin, Cork and Shannon to the US and Canada will end on the 15th of September. We can speak now to Eoghan Corry, editor of Travel Extra, about this. Good morning, Eoghan. Eoghan, first, just going back to Hong Kong there, you heard Aaron there saying efforts are being made to restore order at Hong Kong airport. Severe disruptions in recent days at such an important hub.
Very, very important, and a big problem for those of us who spend our lives in the air. Thankfully, the Cathay Pacific flight, the direct flight to Dublin, got through last night. Check-in was closed at 11 o'clock, but everybody was on board at that stage. Baggage is on the belt in Dublin Airport, a lot of relieved passengers. Most of the airlines have a policy of 7 days free cancellation, waiver fees, change fees are waived, and a lot of our passengers would go indirect. There is a Cathay Pacific direct 4 times a week. It was not disrupted. Controlled access would be the way forward from an air passenger point of view. That is quite normal through Africa, South America, and to a lesser extent in Asia, in countries that even have a smell of conflict, that you do not get into the terminal without a boarding pass or a staff pass. That will be implemented in Hong Kong. It'll be interesting to see if they manage to get, it's a very important hub even for people who go onbound to Australia as well, to get it running normally, but they did lose nearly 400 flights over the last 52 hours. All right, now back to Norwegian Air. 6 routes from Dublin, Cork and Shannon to the United States and Canada, ending on the 15th of September. The ending of those flights will have a big impact on Cork and Shannon airports. Last night, our reporter Angus Cox got the reaction of Cork Airport's Head of Communications, Kevin Cullinan, to Norwegian's decision to pull its transatlantic routes from the airport.
We fought long and hard to secure a direct permit for Norwegian to operate in and out of Ireland, and for Cork to become Ireland's newest transatlantic gateway in 2017 was a major coup for us. We're still at the fastest growing airport on the island this year, but this news now obviously will redouble our efforts to try and secure another transatlantic carrier to operate services out of Cork, but it'll probably take until summer 2021 to secure that service, albeit that we've been in active discussions with other carriers over the last while.
And what sort of economic impact is this likely to have on the airport?
Well, when the service launched, it was seen as a very important business and cultural tie between the two countries. You have over 150 overseas companies based in the greater Cork region that have transnational links. Corporations such as Apple and Amazon, Dell EMC were very supportive of the service, and obviously it was boosting tourism in both directions. It will be a temporary loss in terms of the tourism proposition, but obviously we'll work with the various tourism partners, including Tourism Ireland, to try and rebuild this service for the future.
That's Kevin Cullinan there from Cork Airport. Now, what impact is Norwegian's decision likely to have on Shannon Airport? Acting Chief Executive of the Shannon Group, Mary Considine, which runs Shannon Airport, has been giving her reaction to Angus Cox.
Well, if we look at the impact on Shannon and importantly on the wider region, we're looking at an economic impact of those passengers of circa 60 million. So it's a very significant impact on the broader region.
How reliant on Norwegian's transatlantic routes was and is Shannon Airport?
Well, Shannon have an existing network of transatlantic services with Aer Lingus, United, Delta and American Airlines. I think what's important is that Norwegian routes were quite popular to Stewart and Providence, and you look at the level of passengers that they carried on those routes, it demonstrates that there is a demand from those services from this region, and that will be very important now when we're out talking to our existing carriers and carriers that are looking to expand their transatlantic services.
And are you confident, Mary, you'll be able to replace this lost business, and if you can do, what kind of time frame are you looking at?
It won't be easy to replace this overnight, but the fact that there is proven demand will certainly assist, and we're already in discussions with carriers. Shannon is the only airport on the western seaboard with transatlantic services, and I think, the fact that the services were in place, it's very unfortunate due to the grounding that they're being withdrawn, but there is a proven demand, and that will certainly assist. But it'll be very important as well that we work closely with agencies like Tourism Ireland, because connectivity into the regions is vital, and it's very important that that's maintained and grows. It's certainly a significant impact on 2019, and it will take us a while to replace that traffic into 2020. But I suppose we would be confident with the right supports in place that we will be able to replace that traffic over time.
That's Mary Considine from Shannon Airport speaking to Angus Cox. Eoghan Corry is still with us. Eoghan, how much of this is down to the fact that the airline got unlucky with its aircraft, with the grounding of the Boeing 737 MAX, and how much of it is down to the fact that the airline has been losing a lot of money?
It's been a bad few years. As a former Tipperary hurling manager once said, if I'd ducks, they'd drown. Norwegian were delayed in getting this started by a big, huge opposition, political opposition, but mainly union opposition in North America. It meant they were hanging around, leaking cash for about 2 years. And then they ran into their own sort of a takeover that wasn't a takeover problem last December. IAG, Willie Walsh, listeners will remember, was talking about a takeover bid for Norwegian. Somebody else came into play. Willie Walsh said, I'm not in a bidding war, and pulled out. So that meant that their takeover, and when the other player pulled out as well, that meant that they were in a situation where they've a terrific market share, very impressive market share, but not the cash to keep it going. So a lot of rumours floating around about them. That has an impact on you when you're negotiating your credit terms. It also has, crucially, an impact when you're going into to hedge your fuel. You don't get the favourable terms that the likes of Ryanair and EasyJet can command. There was a little bit of money leaking out of the transatlantic operation, and of course, as they said in the statement, the Boeing 737 MAX was grounded. Listeners need no introduction to that. That meant that they had to charter in an A330. I suspect that the trickle of money they were losing was turned into a torrent. They had successfully sold Newburgh Stewart International as a New York airport. It's 2 hours north of Manhattan. People were prepared to buy that. They weren't as happy to buy Providence and Boston, the connection between that. And interestingly enough, Providence didn't perform as well for them. They pulled out of Belfast first, and then now they've pulled out of the other operation. But I suspect that it has been not just the Boeing 737 MAX, but a whole series of unfortunate events that rode against them. And
they found it difficult to make money from Irish customers. They had a low-cost model, similar to the kind of Ryanair model.
We are so trained. Ryanair has trained us into just going on board with no luggage in the hold, not buying a cup of coffee, bringing our sandwiches. Norwegian had pitched their fare at a good, nice little low level, nice lead in, and expected to make more money out of the ancillaries than they did. The last conversation I had with them was saying that maybe they pitched the fare a little bit too low, and the ancillaries expectation a little bit too high. The Irish customers didn't respond. They were still making money, and while it's a very big impact on Cork and on Shannon. 28,000 of their customers were through Cork, 82,000 through Shannon, but 242,000 were through Dublin. They were still able to make money, but the margins are very, very tight. And once the 737 MAX was grounded, and they ended up at the cost of the A330 and bringing people from around the country to Dublin to feed it, it also meant that their two destination strategy on the other side came under pressure. So all of those things rode against them in the end, but the numbers were significant. And the other thing that was significant, and this is really important for the Irish consumer, was it brought down the fares from legacy airlines as well. Aer Lingus came in with a very specific product for the no baggage and the whole customer. They were creating a new market. They were very, very good about it, and it'd be lovely to see somebody either pick up that market or maybe get Norwegian back after a takeover.
And very briefly, on the prospects for getting a replacement into Cork and Shannon for transatlantic services.
It's not a good time to be looking for a replacement, and certainly the grounding of the MAX has had an impact on those single-aisle transatlantic services.
All right, Eoghan Corry, editor of Travel Extra, thanks for joining us.